In fifth grade, Jeffrey fell in love with Lily. Her wavy hair, carelessly pulled back in a ponytail, would make his heart skip a beat. And Jeffrey got chills from Lily's bell-like voice as she laughed. To be honest, though, Jeffrey wasn't the only one who had feelings for Lily. When she walked into the classroom, half of the boys would turn their heads. Lily took advantage of the fact that she was talented and attractive. She would ask one boy to bring her a box of candy, and another to carry her backpack home. 3 boys even fought over her on New Year's Eve. Jeffrey prevailed. After that, he didn't speak to his classmates for a while, but at least he had Lily. He would hold her hand as he walked her home. They even shared a kiss. At the time, they were both 16 years old. However, Lily was dancing with older men at the neighborhood disco a year later. Jeffrey was furious. At the same moment, she was with him and not with him. After his parents passed away, Jeffrey stayed with his grandfather, Mr. Collins, who made an effort to comfort him. "You're suffering for the wrong one," he said, shaking his head. Lily inherited her mother's party-loving tendencies. She had most likely dated every man in the area before leaving for the city and returning with a baby. Lily was born to her. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, grandson. "Grandpa, why are you saying that?" Jeffrey gave Mr. Collins a disapproving glance. "Lily is just fun-loving and takes life easy, but I'm sure she loves me." "Oh dear, time will tell," countered Mr. Collins. "However, I would advise you to put her out of your mind. That's all." Jeffrey, however, ignored his grandfather and was by Lily's side the moment she winked at him. Jeffrey accompanied her to her culinary school after school. The culinary school was far from the radio engineering college, which was his true choice. On the other hand, they taught auto mechanics almost next door. Jeffrey therefore registered there merely to be close to Lily. Lily really just stared at Jeffrey at first. She clung to Jeffrey because she was bashful in the large metropolis after the village, and he was overjoyed. After finishing his studies, he ran to his sweetheart and brought her to the movies, a cafe, and a park for a stroll. Jeffrey thought that Lily would now only be his, but the girl quickly adapted to the city and found herself another admirer besides Jeffrey. At first, he didn't suspect anything, but Lily began to skip dates more and more often, citing busy studying. And then he saw her getting into an expensive car. He didn't see the driver then, but later, when he asked her who she was riding around the city with, she just laughed. "Are you jealous?" The girl shook her curls. "Jealous, silly. This is Mary, my classmate." Her boyfriend gave her the car, and the whiteboard riding. "What kind of gift?" Jeffrey laughed. "Does she have a millionaire as a boyfriend?" "No, not really. Just knows how to make deals." Lily shrugged and squinted at Jeffrey. "And what will you do for me?" "I give her life for you," Jeffrey explained. "Like?" Lily chuckled, then kissed Jeffrey indifferently and went to the dormitory. Jeffrey never understood why she suddenly became so cool. The next day, he didn't see her again. And then Lily's roommate, Nancy, couldn't take it anymore and told everything. "She has another boyfriend," Nancy pointed out. "She's gone with Lily." But she said she was with her friend Mary. Jeffrey's throat went dry from with her friend. Nancy chuckled. "I'm sorry. She's making a fool of you and cheating on you." After hearing Nancy's words, Jeffrey shrank as if struck. His face changed, and he turned and left. Deciding to wait for Lily at the entrance of the dormitory, he stood there for a long time. It got dark. Lily arrived in the same car at 2 in the morning, and the car immediately drove off. The girl ran to the dormitory doors without noticing Jeffrey, but he called out to her. Lily approached, looking confused. "Jeffrey? What are you doing here? Following me?" "So it's true what they say to me?" Jeffrey asked. "Are you cheating on me?" "Cheating?" Lily laughed. "Oh no, I am choosing Jeffrey. I was thinking about who was better between you guys. And you know, it's not in your favor. Ben is rich, attentive. He gives me flowers and takes me to restaurants. And what can you give me? Just moonlit walks, but I love you." "So does he," Lily laughed. "Okay, buddy, I'm going." It's time for me to sleep." As she clacked her heels towards the porch, Jeffrey watched her go. The door to the dormitory closed behind her, and he stood there stunned. That was it. His soul was empty, and his heart was cold. Nothing else held him in this city. The next morning, Jeffrey picked up his documents from the technical school and went to the station. A few hours later, he was knocking on the window of his native house. Grandpa understood everything, although Jeffrey was lying about an uninteresting education. "So, Lily dumped you, right?" he asked directly. "She did," the guide admitted dejectedly. "I've told you, grandson," Mr. Collins exploded. "I've told you to stay away from her, and you kept saying that you loved her. That's what you got in the end." Grandpa raged for a long time, and Jeffrey sat there, almost crying, not saying another word. Eventually, Mr. Collins calmed down, patted the guy on the shoulder, and even cheered him up, saying that he would have so many more Lilies. But a month later, Lily returned to the village. She came to apologize to Jeffrey, crying. "Jeffrey, forgive me." Lily wiped away her tears. "I was stupid. I realized that I love you, but it's too late. Only you. And that guy. I made a mistake. He turned out to be a scoundrel and not at all rich. He stole his car. And for me, he stole a laptop and my last money. Fortunately, my roommates collected some money for the trip. So, if he were rich, you would still be with him." Jeffrey looked her straight in the eye. "What are you saying?" Lily began to convince him, speaking sincerely. "I don't need him. As soon as you left, I understood everything right away. I need you, Jeffrey." The girl rushed into Jeffrey's arms, and he felt her hair's scent, the touch of her delicate skin. It was stronger than his willpower. He still loved Lily. They spent that night in Jeffrey's room. Mr. Collins was hard of hearing, so he didn't notice that they had an unexpected guest. But in the morning, he saw her. He cursed and wanted to drive Lily out, but Jeffrey stopped him. "She is my life," he said. "I will decide what to do." And he decided. He would still be together with Lily. So Lily and Jeffrey were back together. 2 weeks later, Lily happily ran to Jeffrey. "Jeffrey, I took a test, and there were 2 stripes." She blurted out at the doorstep. "I'm pregnant." Jeffrey was surprised. "So fast? Did you forget?" Lily pouted. "About that night at your place and how your grandpa wanted to kick me out the next morning?" "No, of course not, my love." Jeffrey drew her close, hugged her, and kissed her. "I'm happy, really happy. It's just unexpected." That same day, they went to the registry office to file an application. Mr. Collins scolded them for a whole week, but Jeffrey wouldn't listen. He was happy his dream would come true. "You're a fool, Jeffrey," Mr. Collins scolded. "You got involved with a bad woman, and you won't be able to untangle yourself. Shame on you. You're embarrassing me in front of people. In my old age, how am I supposed to face honest people now?" "Grandpa, we're going to have a baby," Jeffrey replied. "A family? A baby? What a fool you are," Mr. Collins sighed. "She's been with everyone in the city." "Grandpa, she's my woman, and this is my child," Jeffrey answered firmly. The old man waved his hand, indicating he wanted nothing more to do with it. There was no wedding. The young couple simply registered their marriage, and Lily moved in with Jeffrey. They hardly spoke with Mr. Collins. He didn't like his daughter-in-law. However, over time, the old man softened a bit. Who knows? Maybe everything would turn out fine between Jeffrey and this good-for-nothing girl. Lily gave birth to her daughter slightly earlier than expected, but the doctors assured them it wouldn't affect the baby. However, something unexpected happened. The little girl was born with a serious eye condition. She wasn't blind, but the doctors suspected retinal detachment. All of this could lead to blindness. Lily was in such shock that she wanted to leave the baby at the hospital. But when Mr. Collins found out, he raised a fuss. "Who is she? A puppy or something?" Even a puppy deserves a better attitude. And this is a child, a human being, so it's fate. Jeffrey fully agreed with his grandfather. He would accept any child of his own. Besides, medicine was constantly improving. The first year was more or less normal. But as Molly, the name they gave the girl, grew, her eyesight worsened. By the age of 3, the little girl was completely blind. Lily became irritated over trivial things. She found it burdensome to take care of her own daughter. A blind child required more attention. They couldn't stray too far from her. But Lily wanted to walk in the village or have fun in the neighboring city. Meanwhile, the doctors didn't give up on the child's health. Surgery was necessary, but it was costly. Jeffrey, who had worked as a simple mechanic on a farm before, got a job at a lumber yard. They paid much more there. In principle, Lily was fine with it. But she didn't think about her daughter, only about getting more money for herself. Mr. Collins didn't meddle in their relationship. He only dealt with his great-granddaughter. He loved the little girl. Jeffrey had been working for a month when another accident happened. He was crushed by a log during loading, so badly that he spent a week in the intensive care unit. The doctors did what they could to save his spine, but little came of it. Jeffrey was discharged from the hospital as an invalid. His body below the waist became like a stranger to him, paralyzed. Nothing could be done at the district hospital. A consultation was needed in the capital, and, of course, money for it. Lily became gloomier than ever. A blind daughter, a disabled husband, a grumpy old man, and she was still young. Why did she have to go through all that? Lily cried at night, feeling sorry for herself, and then she cried again the next night. Finally, she packed her things, said she was going to the city, and slammed the door. Jeffrey just silently watched her leave. Molly was sleeping, and her mother didn't even say goodbye. Mr. Collins spat after his daughter-in-law. He didn't expect anything else from her. The old man started taking care of his great-granddaughter and his disabled grandson. It was hard for him. He was in his 80s. Lily's mother pretended not to know anything about her son-in-law or granddaughter. Then Jeffrey's friend arrived. Terry lived in the city, but his parents brought him to the village to his grandparents every summer. Now, the elderly people had passed away, but the house remained, so Terry would come here in the summer, like to a summer house. He and Jeffrey had been friends since childhood. Terry came to visit his friend and found out that Jeffrey was bedridden and his daughter was left without a mother. "That's how we live, Terry," said Mr. Collins sadly. "Maybe you can suggest something. How can we take Jeffrey to the city?" "I can help," agreed Terry. He was firmly standing on his feet, having a large business in the city. "I'll take Jeffrey to the capital, and we'll take Molly too. We'll show her to the specialists. So, Jeffrey, are you okay with that?" Jeffrey just nodded. Of course, he didn't want to be a burden to his friend with his problems, but no one else could help him. They quickly dealt with Jeffrey's problem in the capital. His bones and nerves were intact, and there was no need for surgery. Thanks to massages and physiotherapy, Jeffrey was able to stand on his feet in a couple of months. But with Molly, things turned out to be more complicated. The surgery was possible, but it cost a lot of money. Even Terry couldn't afford it. "I'm sorry, my friend," he said to Jeffrey, "but I don't have that much." "I understand," Jeffrey replied. "Thank you for helping me." And also, when Molly was checked, it turned out that she was not Jeffrey's daughter. As soon as Mr. Collins found out, he got furious at Lily, but he didn't refuse Molly. Despite the DNA results, Jeffrey still considered her his daughter, so they continued to live together. Jeffrey got a job as a driver for Terry and was constantly traveling to the city. 3 years passed, and Molly grew up. She was supposed to go to school, but where to go if she was blind? Then a young teacher came to school. Kaya Donovan had completed courses on how to work with blind children as well. She suggested teaching the girl at home. One day, when Jeffrey had a day off, they met with Kaya. The girl was teaching Molly at the time. Jeffrey, who hadn't looked at women all these years, suddenly felt that this young teacher had touched his soul. And Kaya liked Jeffrey. Soon, they started a relationship. And Mr. Collins was only happy. He liked Kaya, a kind, friendly, decent woman. Soon, Kaya found out that Molly could sing well, and she suggested going to the city and performing concerts in the square. People would donate money for her treatment. Mr. Collins hesitated, wondering how much they could raise. But Jeffrey liked the idea. In childhood, Mr. Collins' grandfather had taught him to play the accordion, and that accordion was still gathering dust on the shelf. The first concert didn't go well. Molly was shy, and Jeffrey had forgotten how to play. But soon, their concerts were a success. While they sang and played, their audience threw money into the box where it was written, "For Molly's operation. Help the girl regain her sight." Then the media got involved. A foundation helped, and one day, the entire amount was raised. Molly and Jeffrey flew to Israel, where the girl was successfully operated on. When they returned to their country, Kaya was there to greet them at the airport. "Mommy." Molly yelled upon seeing Kaya, and the little girl ran over and hugged her. She had grown so accustomed to Kaya that she had begun to think of her as her mother. She recognized her right away, even though she hadn't seen her before. She felt it in her heart. Jeffrey was thrilled, especially since he was already planning to propose to Kaya. They got married very soon after. Time passed, and Jeffrey and Kaya had 2 more sons. Mr. Collins was thrilled that his grandson's life had finally come together, and he could finally rest easy. The grandfather's soul was calm, and one autumn morning he died in his sleep from old age. After burying the old man, Jeffrey and his family moved to the city, where they settled. Jeffrey worked for Terry, and Kaya worked at the school. 10 years passed. Jeffrey and his family visited the village and the cemetery every autumn. They would come, tidy up the grave, and clean the house. They came again this time. Kaya was preparing lunch with the boys at home while Jeffrey and Molly went to see the grandfather's grave. Over the year, the grave had become overgrown, so father and daughter cleaned it up. "We need to change the photo on the gravestone next year. This one has faded," Jeffrey pointed out. "Yes, let's use the photo where he's smiling," Molly nodded. "I really like that one." And Grandpa liked it too. "Let's do it," Jeffrey agreed. Then they heard a branch crack. They turned around. Lily was standing there. Jeffrey didn't recognize her at first. She had aged so much and lost so much weight. But it was her. Did he really ever look her? "Daughter, it's her," Jeffrey said softly, looking at Molly. "Your biological mother." Molly knew that her birth mother had abandoned her when she was 5, but over the years, her had been. Now, Molly was just interested to see her, an old, worn down by life. "Hello," Lily finally whispered, looking at Molly. "My mother told me you were here, so I hurried to see you. I'm sorry." She suddenly saw and felt relief. "Please forgive me." Lily reached out to Molly, and the girl even recoiled at first. But then she approached her mother and helped her up. "Dad." Molly looked at Jeffrey. "You go ahead. We'll talk." Jeffrey nodded silently and went behind the cemetery fence. He didn't know what they would be talking about, but Molly came out 20 minutes later and sat next to her father in the car. "Have you talked?" Jeffrey asked. "Yeah, nothing special," Molly calmly replied. "She asked for forgiveness, and I already forgave her." "Dad, who is she to me?" "No one. My mother is Kaya. But I gave her my phone number so she can call if she likes. I didn't push her away like she did to me. Do you think I did the right thing, Dad?" "You did everything right, daughter," Jeffrey nodded. "You're a smart girl. Let's go. Your mother and brothers have probably already set the table." The car slowly started moving, and Lily stood at the cemetery gate, wiping away tears. Pain and sorrow were eating away at her heart, but the past couldn't be brought back, and the mistakes of her wild youth couldn't be undone. Lily walked along the dusty road, realizing that she could have been a happy woman, together with her daughter and husband Jeffrey. But she abandoned them, and in the end, she was abandoned too. No one needed her anymore. That's how her story ended.